ICE shot and killed Alex Pretti in Minneapolis on Saturday morning, and the response from everyone on either side has been flooded with lies, politics, and whatever prior beliefs people already had. And nobody has mentioned the legal standards that actually matter. Welcome back. Another tragic story out of Minneapolis over the weekend, and this one is already being turned into a Rorschach test for how you feel about ICE, guns, and protests. Today, I'm walking us through what we actually know and hopefully showing you that the uncomfortable truth is that we really don't know much of anything. We got grainy videos, bodies piled on bodies, garbled yelling, and a mysterious gunshot. It's a jumbled mess. Yet somehow, people on both sides of the political aisle are completely certain that they know exactly what happened and exactly who's at fault. What I want to do is walk you through the footage that we have and then focus on the actual legal standard to answer the question. Was this a justified shooting? Before we get into it, hit like, subscribe if you want more honest analysis that isn't just a cheerleading for one team. Now let's not waste any more time and let's jump right into it. All right, so I'll admit, on Saturday, I was on my phone. I wasn't tuned into the news, and I didn't see any of this until roughly about 7 hours after it started going viral. Every response I was seeing was in reply to this one video. I'm cutting it short here to just focus on the parts that actually matter for the analysis.
The fuck, people? The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
Now, can you tell what happened from this video? No, you can't, and you're lying if you say you can. For almost the entire time, Pretty's body is blocked by ICE agents. At the very end, after the first gunshot, the agents seem to clear out and we finally get a clean look at Pretty before he's shot, but it's still not enough to tell, one way or the other, what was actually going on. And that is a huge problem because this clip alone sparked emotional takes like this one from Tyrese Halliburton, saying that Alex Pretti was murdered by ICE. And on the other side, people insisting that Pretti was clearly pulling a gun, claims that are just impossible to get from the video I just showed you. And the latter take becomes even shakier once the next video dropped, showing an agent going into that jumbled mess of bodies, reaching down, and coming away with a gun. It seems pretty clear he pulled that gun from Pretti, and it was later confirmed that this was the only weapon Pretti had on him. So at the time of the shooting, Pretti was unarmed. And legally speaking, that actually doesn't really matter, but we'll get to that later. Those videos were the most viral runs, the ones that let everybody form their opinions, but going off of just those videos, we still don't know much. All we really know is this. Alex Pretti was interfering with ICE officers, he got into a fight with them, had a gun taken off of him, and then he was shot. No video so far is conclusive. I completely get the immediate gut reaction that this looks like a bad shooting, but at that point, that's still a reaction, not a conclusion. Then we got 2 more videos zoomed in on what was actually going on in that pile. They seem to show Pretti reaching back toward his waistband, seemingly where his gun once was. In this first video, I want you to pay close attention to when you hear the very first gunshot. If you caught that, it wasn't until after the first gunshot that Pretti reached back toward his waistband. Here's another angle from behind. Just before that moment, you can hear the officers yelling something. I personally can't make it out clearly, but the internet seems convinced that the officers are yelling gun, meaning that they spotted that Pretti was armed. Then, after that, an officer reaches in, grabs the gun, and walks away with it. Then all hell breaks loose. We hear a gunshot, a slight pause, and then more gunshots. So what actually happened? We don't know for sure. The main theory online is that the gun taken from Pretti accidentally discharged while it was in the officer's hand. This video I'm showing now claims to show that apparent accidental discharge, but again, that is just an online theory. But what's helpful to that theory is that this particular type of gun was the subject of a roughly $11 million lawsuit a few years ago. That said, even with that context, the video itself isn't obvious to me. I don't clearly see a recoil, I don't clearly see the gun go off, but at the same time, the footage of Pretti reaching back suggests that he did not react to that first shot, which strongly implies that he was not hit by that first gunshot. From everything I've shown you, I have a working theory of what actually happened. Again, this is just a theory, but it's at least based on the video evidence that we have, the same clips that you've just seen. So here's my best guess. First, Pretti interferes with a lawful ICE operation. He gets taken to the ground by multiple agents and he fights back. In that struggle, an agent sees a gun, yells gun to alert the others, and then that gun gets taken from Pretty's waistband. As the agent is walking away with the gun, a shot goes off. The best available evidence suggests that it might be an accidental discharge. Again, I'm not fully convinced of that because I don't see obvious recoil, but either way, it appears Pretty was not hit by that first gunshot. Then, after the shot, Pretty reaches back toward his waistband, toward where the gun had been. Then, other agents open fire, killing him. It's unclear which agent actually shot him. All we know is that he was shot and killed. That is my reconstruction. There's video evidence supporting every part of it, but none of it is 100% clear. So where does that leave us? Well, it gave us two camps almost instantly. One side said this was an execution. That's your position. You are ignoring the clip of him reaching toward his waistband. The other side says that this was clearly justified. If that's your position, then you're ignoring that all of this is just grainy footage stitched together a second at a time, and we can't be fully sure of anything. Basically, if your view of this case just immediately clicked into place and hasn't moved at all since, then you're probably not actually analyzing the videos. You're just expressing how you already feel about ICE, about protesters, and about guns. Either that, or you don't understand the law. When is lethal force justified? Lethal force is justified when a reasonable person would fear for their life or someone else's life. That's the core standard. And this is why that video of him reaching for his waistband is so important. The agents knew he had a gun, and then they saw him reach back toward that area. That gives them an argument that they feared for their lives. Now, the standard is supposed to be an objective one, not a subjective one. The question is not, did this particular officer say he was scared? It's, would a reasonable person in the same situation fear for their life or someone else's life? That is a crucial distinction, which is what makes this and pretty much every police-involved shooting such an interesting legal case to follow. Because I'm sure the officer who fired would say that he feared for his safety and the safety of other officers. He heard a gunshot, and then he saw Pretty reach behind his back to where the gun had been. Now, in most use of force cases, that exact sequence would be more than enough for an officer to argue that he had reasonable grounds to use lethal force. But here's the twist in this case. We know that Pretty was unarmed at the time he was shot. I mentioned earlier that that is legally irrelevant, and it mostly is. It only becomes relevant if the officer knew Pretty was unarmed, which I guarantee you he did not. That is the one guarantee I'll make in this entire video. The shooting officer did not know that the gun had already been removed. What's also different about this case is that Pretty was largely prone, laying on the ground, face down on the ground, not standing up, not charging. Would a reasonable person think that someone in that position would reach back, grab a gun, and shoot the officer? I don't know. But it is important that as soon as the first gunshot went off, the space around him cleared, Pretty was able to get up to his knees, and that is when he reached behind him. So put yourself in that officer's shoes. Did he think Pretty fired his gun and was reholstering? Did he think Pretty still had the gun and was going for it again? More importantly, though, would a reasonable person in that officer's situation, after hearing gun, hearing a shot, and then seeing Pretty's hand go to where the gun had been, would a reasonable person think that Pretty might be a threat to their life and the lives of other officers? When I frame it that way, you can at least see that the officer has an argument. I think you're lying if you say that you don't even understand that. But at the same time, I can absolutely see people saying that a reasonable person would not fear for their lives in that exact moment. You can argue either side of that. The problem is that almost none of the debate you see online is rooted in that legal standard. It's rooted in emotion, in political priors, and whatever lies and half clips people have been seeing on the internet. Since the shooting, we've had multiple doctored AI images flying around. This is the one that I've seen the most. It shows an agent behind Pretty with a gun pointed directly at his head. But if you look closely, the officer kneeling on the ground in front of him doesn't even have a head. So this image is clearly fake, and even if it weren't, you still can't judge the legality of a shooting off of one screenshot. If you've seen this image, or maybe screenshots of Pretty reaching behind his back, you're forming an opinion based on something that doesn't actually answer the legal question. And just like in the NFL, you can't judge a catch from a single still frame, you can't judge a shooting based on a single frame. You need the full video and the full context to even start making a judgment. The absolute worst response came from the Border Patrol Chief, Greg Bovino. Just watch how he portrays Alex Pretti.
The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
He claims that Pretti was out there to massacre law enforcement agents and do maximum damage. And look, I get that he's trying to defend his agents, but come on, you have absolutely zero evidence that he was there to massacre law enforcement. That kind of language is reckless, and it does nothing to help anybody understand what actually happened or lower the temperature. There's others like Kash Patel who have said that you don't have a right to bring a gun to a protest.
What is your advice to the people right now? who are outraged that this is a second killing at the hands of Border Patrol in 2 weeks.
As Christie said, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want.
That flies directly in the face of what a lot of conservatives and Second Amendment advocates have been saying for years. If you can legally carry a gun, you can legally carry a gun in public. It's that simple. You don't win this case if you're the Trump administration by going after gun rights. You don't win it by saying that Pretti was a threat simply because he had a gun. You win, if you can, by pointing to the videos where he's reaching back toward where his gun had been and by walking through the legal standard. That said, if you are the Trump administration, you really have no need to even try to win this case in the media. The correct response from them is to say that it was a tragic situation and they're going to conduct a full investigation into what happened. That's it. You support the lawful actions of ICE. You are committed to carrying out ICE's lawful duties, and you will fully investigate this incident. There's no need for wild claims about massacres or attacks. They just can't seem to stop themselves. And one more thing. This is not like Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse went into a completely lawless situation with police essentially not stepping in at all and shot someone who chased him down a street and raised a gun at him after he fell. That was a fairly straightforward self-defense analysis if you actually looked at the evidence. You might still think it was stupid for him to be there. I do too. The facts lined up with self-defense. The same thing applies here. You can absolutely say that it was dumb of Alex Pretti to be there with a gun. I agree. He put himself into a dangerous situation that he could have avoided. You can say both things at once. He shouldn't have been there, and that reasonable people may still disagree about whether a person in that officer's position would fear for their life in that moment. It's a sad situation. Yes, I'm praying for Pretti's family, and also for the officer involved in the shooting and his family. It's brutal for everyone, and I promise you, everybody involved wishes that this had gone differently. Thanks for sticking around and watching. If you made it this far, I'm really curious where you land now. Did hearing the legal standard change your mind at all, or did it just make you more confident in what you already believed? Did seeing the clips of him reaching toward his waistband before he got shot move you in either direction? If you liked this kind of legal analysis, I've got a whole playlist of breakdowns just like this on my channel. Those are typically even more legal focused than this, so if you like this, go check out my others. Hit like, subscribe, go check those out, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.